The first max cushioned shoe I ever ran in was the Hoka Clifton, and now we're on version 10. There are a couple of main changes here. The first is going to be more cushion and a higher heel to toe drop. Do these changes ruin the Clifton that you know and love, or are they pretty subtle and I think you'll still enjoy it? Let's find out. I've put over 100 kilometers on the shoe. I'm ready to give you my full review. Just a quick disclaimer though, that Hoka did send me these shoes for a review, but all my thoughts and opinions are my own. Anyways, let's talk about this upper. The upper features a jacquard knit mesh that I found to have a solid lockdown and had decent breathability. As far as fit goes, I went with my usual men's size 12 and thought that it fit perfect. I had a thumbs width at the end, and compared to version 9, I felt like it had a more comfortable arch, and the overall width felt better too. Overall, I'd say that the upper is pretty similar to V9, but the fit is just a little bit better and maybe just a little bit more comfortable as well. Now let's talk about this midsole. So the midsole still uses compression molded EVA and the forefoot stack remains the same, but the heel now gets 3 extra millimeters of foam. The new stack height is 43 millimeters in the heel, 35 in the forefoot with an 8 millimeter drop. The Clifton has always had a 5 millimeter drop, so increasing it to 8 seems like a pretty big deal. When standing in the Clifton 9 on one foot and the Clifton 10 on the other, the drop difference was definitely noticeable, but once I started running in the Clifton 10, to me, it felt pretty similar to the Clifton 9. I think that this is going to be pretty divisive for Clifton fans. Some people who are picky and sensitive about the heel drop will probably not be happy, but I think a lot of people who already run in 8 or 10 millimeter drops won't even notice. As for the ride itself, it's the same plush marshmallow feel that you've come to know and love from the Clifton. Not too squishy, but also not too firm. I thought it was maybe a hair softer than V9, but pretty similar overall. So besides some extra cushion in the heel, the higher heel to toe drop, maybe a little softer overall, I thought that the midsole feel felt pretty similar to previous Cliftons, and that's not necessarily a bad thing since I have really been enjoying the Clifton over the years. Now let's talk about this outsole. So the outsole layout does get tweaked. It still uses durabrasion rubber that covers most of the forefoot and the main areas in the heel. On this version, I noticed that there's a spot in the midfoot that doesn't have rubber, and the last version did. I was seeing a little more wear here and wished that it did have some rubber, but that's not really a huge deal. I assume it was just to save some weight. Speaking of weight, despite getting more cushion, it's only 0.1 ounce heavier, coming in at 9.1 ounces in a men's size 9. Overall, the rubber itself is holding up really well, and I'm expecting to get many more miles out of this outsole. Alright, now let's go over the run type stoplight portion of the review, where I'll go over speed day, everyday, long run day, and recovery day. Starting with speed, I give the Clifton 10 a red light. This definitely isn't a shoe that I look to pick up when I have a speed workout coming up. This is just too squishy, too heavy, too plush for what I'm looking for speed day. Something's a little lighter, a little more responsive, a little more snappy. Moving on to everyday, I give this a green light. I have really enjoyed just putting my everyday cruising miles in the shoe. It's kind of turned into my workhorse of late. Again, there's some of that exposed foam durability isn't the biggest deal, but I've actually found that the rubber is holding up great, and the shoe itself is just comfortable for putting in the miles. Now let's talk about long run. I give that a green light as well. Especially now with even more cushion in the heel, it just feels very plush, very cushioned underfoot. Lots of protection for keeping your feet and your legs happy through the full length of a long run. And everyday runs get a green light as well, kind of similar to long runs. This is a shoe that when my legs are feeling dead from a workout the day before, I'll put these on. You got a lot of protection underneath. This rocker to help you through your gait. Nice and plush, and just something to take it nice and easy. All right, now I'm going to do a couple of quick comparisons. The first shoe I'm going to pair the Clifton 10 to is the Hoka Skyflow. So this is a new model that they introduced last year, and it honestly had a lot of overlap with the Clifton 9. They both had pretty similar stacks. They both had the 5mm drop. This one used a different foam and some different outsole tweaks, but let's compare it to the Clifton 10. So first off, starting with the upper, I thought those were pretty similar, but the fits are definitely different. I found that the Skyflow fit much narrower than the Clifton 10. I myself have a pretty narrow foot, so it didn't bother me, but I know a lot of people find Hokas in general to be a little bit more narrow, and I think that the Clifton 10 is more accommodating in the width department. Now moving on to the midsole, like I mentioned, the Clifton 10 uses compression molded EVA, while the Skyflow uses supercritical EVA, and I actually found this one to feel pretty dense, kind of firm out of the box, and it took a handful of runs for it to soften up and start being more to my liking. While with the Clifton 10, first run out of the box, it was that marshmallow feel that I was expecting and enjoyed. Like I mentioned, this one does have a 5mm drop, while the Clifton 10 gets bumped up to an 8mm drop. So if that affects you, then that might be kind of the deciding factor here. Another thing to touch on is the outsole. I did find that it had a little more coverage and maybe a little better durability on the Skyflow. Overall, I think there's just more rubber there. So between the two, I prefer the Clifton. I don't know if I've just been running in the Clifton over all these years that I've just become a fanboy of it or just accustomed to the feel, but I love that kind of squishy marshmallow feel you get from the Clifton. And I found that the Skyflow was maybe a little firmer, maybe a little bouncier in a sense, but I didn't love it as much as the Clifton. Plus, the Clifton is cheaper, and I think it's like an ounce lighter than the Skyflow as well. Next up is the Nimbus 27 from ASICS. So over the past couple of years, the Nimbus has been replacing the Clifton for me as my long run and recovery day shoe, but I think that the Clifton 10 is coming back in to dethrone the Nimbus here. The Nimbus 25 and 26 I thought were pretty soft, and I really enjoyed that. I think that the Nimbus 27 feels like it firmed up a little bit, and this is one of the big differences between the two, is that foam. They actually now they have the exact same stack height, and both with that 8mm drop, so they both feel very cushioned. They're overall both very plush. They're great for long runs and recovery days and just kind of general daily trainers as well. However, the rides are very different in my opinion. You get kind of that squishier, softer feel of the Clifton where you sink in more. Well, I found that the Nimbus was maybe a little more energetic. You got a little more bounce from it. You don't quite sink into it as much. And I think people have their own preferences. I like this a little more if I'm kind of going a little more moderate pace, kind of picking it up. I like that bounce. But for slow, long, easy days, I like that squish of the Clifton. Another thing to note is that the Clifton is cheaper, and it's about an ounce and a half lighter than the Nimbus as well, which is a plus for me. So again, both great shoes, both great options. Just depends if you think the Clifton feels a little too soft, a little mushy for you, or if you like something maybe a little more energetic and a little firmer with the Nimbus, which even though I say that, it definitely is not a firm shoe at all. So the 10th version of the Clifton keeps that same ideology of the Clifton, but with some potentially controversial tweaks. I think everybody will agree that they love the new fit of it and that it still has that same plushness underfoot. However, that increased stack height and heel-to-toe drop I think is going to be controversial. If you're somebody that's sensitive to those changes in heel-to-toe drops, then you might be looking for the Skyflow or the Bondi that both have those 5mm drops. But if you're somebody like me that runs in a bunch of different shoes and a bunch of different drops, or aren't sensitive to drops, then I think that you'll still be happy with the Clifton. Like I said, once I got moving in this shoe, the drop didn't really bother me. I didn't notice it at all. Again, that's just me. But I know a lot of people that'll be like, 8mm drop, that's not for me. So definitely controversial take here, but for me, I've been really loving the Clifton 10 and think that it's a great update. So I want to hear from you. Have you tried out the Clifton 10? Are you worried about these changes? Are you planning to pick a pair up? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on running.